The following podcast was made possible by the sponsorship of Teresa Leong Lee and by Catholic Digital Resources, where you can find downloadable faith formation resources and evangelization tools. Visit Catholic Digital Resources at catholicdr.com to build your own faith and the faith of others. That's catholicdr.com.
Good News Ministries of GNM.org presents Footsteps to Heaven. Life's a journey full of challenges. Sometimes we get stalled. Sometimes we get sidetracked. When we walk with Jesus and the power of the Holy Spirit to the destination that God the Father designed for us, the results are better than we could ask for or imagine. And now, here is your host, Terry Modica.
You're really due for something fun. This is about putting together a treasure box of blessings. Now, I have a treasure box that I'm going to share with you. Okay, this is my treasure box of blessings. And I'm going to first, though, share with you a scriptural source for this. This is Psalm 77. Tell me if you don't feel like this. We all feel like this from time to time, and you might be feeling like this right now. Aloud to God I cry, aloud to God to hear me. On the day of my distress I seek the Lord. By night my hands are stretched out without flagging. My soul refuses comfort. When I remember God, I moan. When I ponder, my spirit grows. You keep my eyes watchful. You know, here's somebody, you know, do you feel this way? The psalmist is saying that I pray to God and yet I still feel troubled. I keep watching. My eyes are watchful for the Lord to do something, to bring an end to this misery, to answer my prayers, to intervene, and I am troubled and cannot speak. Now, that was verses 1 through 5. Here comes the next and very key verse that's what this particular spiritual exercise is all about. This is the cure. This is the antidote for all this misery that the psalmist just described. I consider the days of old. The years long past I remember. And there are other psalms too that talk about remembering what the Lord has done. Remembering the goodness. Remembering the past times when the Lord has come to our rescue. That's what the treasure box of blessings is all about. It's about filling it with reminders of how God has intervened in your life. Because you know what? When we are in the midst of a bad time, in the midst of struggling, in the midst of suffering, in the midst of waiting for God to intervene, isn't it hard to remember the times God did intervene in the past? That God did come to our rescue? Isn't it hard to remember all the times that God was wonderful to us when we are feeling like He's abandoned us? Or like He's, just making us suffer, because He'll make good come from it. Yes, He will, but that's not the point. He does want to rescue us. And while we are waiting for that to happen, and while we are struggling through this difficult time of waiting for God's intervention, we need a treasure box of blessings to remind us, because we're not remembering on our own. We need this to remind us. This is something that I want you to find or go by. Find in your house. Maybe this used to be where some jewelry was stored, and I don't wear much jewelry, so I just emptied out the jewelry and dusted this thing off and put this on my shrine. I put this on that sacred space shrine. So you're going to find a box that somehow reminds you of treasures. This is like a treasure box, okay? It has to be a box that looks like a treasure box in some way. And then put it on your shrine in your sacred space, or someplace where you can see it every day when you pass it by, for example. I'm going to share with you, to give you ideas about how to choose things to put into here. I'm going to share with you some of the things that I have in my treasure box. So, and your assignment, by the way, not for this particular exercise, is not just to find the box, but to start filling it. Spend time reflecting throughout the week on the good things that God has done for you, and what do you have hanging around the house, or that can you pick up outdoors, or find some place that will remind you of those blessings that God has brought into your life. Think of a blessing, choose a blessing, and go look for something that reminds you of it. The next day, do another one, and the next day, do another one. As often as you can. Get this box filled up as much as you can over the next week, and then in the future, whenever God does something interventional, when God gives you a blessing, draw something, or write something, or pick up something that reminds you of this blessing, that will trigger the memory. Okay, so let me show you, for example. Right, this is a little chalice, a little wooden chalice made of olive wood that I picked up on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land. I had this in my treasure box to remind me of the wonderful, wonderful time I had on that pilgrimage, and the many things that I learned from the Lord, and how close I felt to the Lord. And while I was on that pilgrimage, I mostly forgot about everything else going on at home and anything else that was stressful. You're not watching the news when you're on a trip like that. You're focused 24/7 on you and the Lord, and what you're seeing on this pilgrimage, and how that helps your relationship with the Lord. This reminds me of the wonderfulness of that pilgrimage. So that went into my treasure box. This is a hawk feather. This has a fantastic story behind it. Years ago, Ralph and I were, I'm waving this in front of me. He's like, oh. Anyways, Ralph and I were building our dream house. And it wasn't the full dream that we wanted. We couldn't afford that. But we were building a house that we designed. And as we were preparing to build, we were getting the permits. We were, arranging for various, construction parts, various things during the construction process. We hit obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. If God hadn't told us in the beginning that He was behind this, we had purchased this property, which I'm living on now, and this trailer that is the Good News Ministries office, sits on this property now. When we first found this property, God made it clear, because we were praying, asking for discernment. Is this the right piece of property? Should we spend our money on this? Is this the right place? Is this the right time? And God did a few miraculous timings of things that just made it clear that He approved of this, and He was giving supernatural support to the project. For example, we had to have scientists come by and analyze the property, because we have wetlands on it, and they had to outline where the wetlands were, and we had to determine whether there was enough land that was not wetlands. Wetlands are protected. We need to build on places that were not wetlands, not just because of the protection, but also because you don't want to build on soggy ground. And we also had to have the land surveyor come and let us know what the actual boundaries, confirm that the boundaries that were listed in the sale, confirm that it was accurate. And we wanted, the surveyor also was to line out where, because there's a lot of trees here, where was a good place to build. Did we have, because it was required that we had to have an acre of buildable land. And this was 2.5 acres. A lot of it, part of it's a driveway, 800 feet, and a lot of it's wetlands. And so was there enough buildable place? And we needed to find this out before we spent the money on it, right? The bank who owned the property, because it had gone into foreclosure from somebody else, which brought the price down. Well, that's another whole story, another blessing from God. But the bank allowed us to have 15 days to decide for sure, to run our tests and decide for sure that yes, we were going to buy this property. And to try to get the surveyor out there and the scientists out there in those 15 days was a challenge, especially the scientists. We were told that it takes the scientists usually 3 months before they will go out to a site. But as it so happened, long story short, both the scientist and the land surveyor showed up at exactly the same time, and therefore were able to talk to each other, which helped the whole process. That timing was uncanny. It was supernatural. It was evidence that God's hand was at work. And that was just one of the things that gave us that evidence that God was approving of this project. If it weren't for that, when there were obstacles, we would have thought that maybe God wasn't behind this at all. Maybe we made a mistake. But even with that evidence at the beginning, the doubt still came in, because the obstacles just kept hitting us one after another, and some of them were insurmountable. Some of them just seemed impossible to get around. That's when the hawk feather came into play. We were at the old house. I was outside walking the dog, and lo and behold, there was a bunch of hawks, a whole flock of hawks that suddenly began swirling around in the sky above us, me and the dog. And now you got to know that hawks don't flock. But here was a flock of them. I don't know where they came from, but suddenly they were there in the sky swirling around. And I'm like, oh, I think that might be God giving me a sign. As soon as I thought that, they were gone. I mean, I did not actually see them fly away. They were just gone. And I knew then that God had intervened, and I asked the Lord, and hawks kept showing up, by the way. That was a wonderful incident, but it kept happening in different ways. We'd be driving down the road talking about one of the obstacles, and a hawk would fly in front of the car, crossing the road. And the hawk showed up so many times that I asked the Lord, why the hawk? Why are you using this as a sign? The answer is because hawks from a distance, a high distance, can see with their eyes, can see the tiniest details on the ground. And God was letting me know that He was seeing every detail, and He had our back on it. He was aware of the details, and He was taking care of the details, and we didn't need to worry. And sure enough, we got around every obstacle. But that wasn't the only thing He did with the hawk feather. This particular feather has its own story behind it. One day, I drove, before going to work, I drove past the property to see how the construction was going. I parked my car, and I walked through, took a look around at the construction, thought, oh, this is so cool. And then I went back to the car, and stuck in the car door, straight up, was this hawk feather. That meant that the hawk had to fly above and lose his feather at just the right place, and it had to float down through the air and land in this position, not floating down like this, but landing straight up and down, hitting that crack in just the right place, so that when I got back to the car, I saw it right there at my driver's side car door. You can bet this is one of my treasures that I keep. Anytime I see a hawk feather on the ground, I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. And I'm remembering the good things that he has done for me in that whole process. And it's a reminder again and again and again that God is watching the details and he cares about the details and he's taking care of us. So, of course, this went into my treasure box. I also have a Divine Mercy prayer thing. It has the chaplet in it. It's got the Divine Mercy picture in it. So this is a reminder of how many times the Lord, in his mercy, has come to my rescue. I've got some cards in it that represent different events in which God's blessings showed up. I have this coin-like thing that has St. Michael the Archangel on one side and St. Joseph on the other side, which is a reminder of both how St. Michael has helped out sometimes and how St. Joseph has helped out sometimes. Like, for example, many years ago, we were living in New Jersey and wanting to move to Florida, and we needed to sell our house in order to move to Florida, and we needed to sell it in a certain amount of time. We were running out of time, so Ralph and I prayed together, St. Joseph, you are the patron saint of the home, so please help us sell this house. 30 seconds later, the realtor called and said she had somebody that wanted to come by and take a look at it, and that's the person who bought the house. So this coin reminds me of that and other times that St. Joseph has helped. So there's some other things in here too, but I just wanted to use that for some ideas for you. Now you go find your treasure box and your treasures to put in it. God bless you. Is your faith strong enough to keep joy in your life and peace in your life no matter what's going on? What do you need to do to bolster your faith, to strengthen your faith? Well, I'm inviting you to come to my Faith Muscles Boot Camp.